The entire rebuild was on the verge of falling apart. Hidden deep inside a wrecked $6 million Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport was a damaged gearbox that could determine whether this project lived or died. For weeks, nobody knew the true extent of the damage because the affected area was buried beneath some of the most complex engineering ever fitted to a road car. There was only one way to find out how bad things really were. But according to Bugatti's own CEO, that procedure could not be performed in a normal garage. In fact, he claimed only a handful of facilities in the entire world had the equipment and expertise required to do it. Yet standing inside Black Horse Performance with nothing more than determination, standard workshop tools, and a small team of friends, Matt Armstrong was preparing to attempt exactly what Bugatti said was impossible. What happened next would send shockwaves through the automotive community and spark debates among enthusiasts across the world. Because this wasn't just about fixing a crashed hypercar anymore. It had become a battle between manufacturer limitations and independent determination. Stay with me until the end, because the discovery Matt made after splitting this Bugatti apart changed the entire future of the rebuild and proved that this challenge was far from over. The story began after Alex's Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport suffered a devastating crash and was declared a total loss by insurance. Most people would have walked away at that point, but Alex decided to buy the car back and attempt something that many believed could never be done. He turned to Matt Armstrong, whose reputation for rebuilding seemingly impossible projects had already earned him millions of followers around the world. Matt accepted the challenge, knowing full well that this would become the most ambitious rebuild of his career. By the time this stage of the project arrived, Matt had already stripped away damaged body panels, removed deployed airbags, taken out the windscreen, and completely dismantled the interior. Along the way, he discovered something that immediately raised concerns. The gearbox appeared to be damaged on both sides, and the visible cracks suggested that the crash forces may have caused much more destruction than anyone originally thought. The problem was that nobody could properly inspect the damage while the car remained assembled. The gearbox and engine area were buried so deeply within the Chiron structure that complete access required separating the entire rear section of the car from the front carbon fiber monocoque. That was where things became controversial. Shortly after, Matt began documenting the rebuild. Bugatti CEO Matt Armstrong publicly explained why rebuilding the Chiron outside of Bugatti's approved facilities would be nearly impossible. He stated that the car contained countless electrical systems, coolant lines, oil pipes, hydraulic connections, fuel lines, and structural components that all connected the front and rear sections together. According to him, separating a Chiron was not something that could be done in a normal garage. It required specialized equipment, factory procedures, and highly trained technicians with experience working on Bugatti's most advanced vehicles. For many people, that would have been the end of the road. But for Matt Armstrong, hearing that something couldn't be done only made him more determined to try. The reality was simple. Bugatti had already made it clear they would not provide replacement parts, technical support, or assistance of any kind. If this car was going to be saved, Matt would have to find a way forward on his own. Standing beside his father, Tony, Alex, and the rest of the team, Matt made a decision. They were going to attempt the procedure anyway. There would be no factory tools, no specialized training, and no Bugatti engineers guiding them through the process. Their approach would rely on patience, observation, and careful problem solving. As Tony confidently reminded everyone, if a machine was built by human beings, then another human being should be capable of taking it apart and understanding how it worked. With that mindset, the challenge officially began. The team's objective was simple but enormous. They needed to become the third facility in the world capable of separating a Bugatti Chiron in half. If they succeeded, they would gain access to the hidden damage and finally discover whether the car could be repaired. If they failed, the rebuild might come to an end before it ever truly started. Armed with little more than ordinary tools and a willingness to learn, Matt Armstrong prepared to take on one of the greatest challenges of his automotive career. The first step toward proving Bugatti wrong was surprisingly simple. Matt and the team began removing the rear bodywork, hoping it would reveal the bolts that connected the rear drivetrain assembly to the front carbon fiber tub. At first, nobody knew exactly what they would find. They expected hidden fasteners, complicated procedures, and perhaps some engineering secrets that justified Bugatti's claims. Instead, what they discovered was something completely different. The rear quarter panels came off one piece at a time. As each panel was removed, more of the Chiron structure became visible. Hidden behind trims, door seals, and carbon fiber covers were attachment points that looked surprisingly logical. The deeper Matt went into the car, the more he began to realize that Bugatti's engineering wasn't designed to prevent repairs. In many ways, It seemed designed to make repairs possible. Every component that came off revealed another layer of the car's construction. Carbon fiber trim pieces were secured with accessible fasteners. Structural sections could be removed without destroying surrounding components. Even large exterior panels appeared to be bolted on rather than permanently bonded into place. For a vehicle worth millions of dollars, the design seemed remarkably practical. As the team continued working, confidence inside the workshop started growing. The impossible challenge that had seemed overwhelming at the beginning of the day was slowly becoming manageable. With every bolt removed and every panel lifted away, they moved one step closer to understanding exactly how the Chiron was built. The engine cover was next. Matt expected a complicated procedure, but once again the car surprised him. After removing a few fasteners, the entire rear hatch lifted away, exposing more of the massive W16 engine beneath. Soon afterward, the rear wing was removed as well. Piece by piece, one of the world's most exclusive hypercars was coming apart inside an independent garage. What stood out most was how intelligently everything had been engineered. Rather than forcing technicians to dismantle dozens of unnecessary parts to reach important components, many sections of the Chiron were designed to be removed as complete assemblies. It wasn't difficult because the car was simple. It was easier because the engineers had clearly thought about serviceability during the design process. As the rear quarter panels finally came free, the team got their first clear look at the structural connection between the front and rear sections of the car. Hidden beneath the bodywork were the mounting points they had been searching for. For the first time, they could actually see some of the bolts responsible for holding the entire vehicle together. The discovery was a major milestone. It confirmed that they were moving in the right direction and that separating the Chiron might genuinely be possible. The sight of those attachment points transformed the atmosphere in the garage. What had started as an experiment was beginning to look like a real possibility. With the body panels safely removed and more of the car exposed than ever before, Matt took a moment to appreciate what he was seeing. The Chiron's engineering was extraordinary, but it wasn't magic. It was a machine designed by people, assembled by people, and therefore capable of being understood by people willing to take the time to learn. The challenge was far from over. In fact, the hardest part still lay ahead. Hidden beneath the exposed bodywork were dozens of electrical connections, coolant pipes, hydraulic systems, brake lines, and drivetrain components that all needed to be disconnected before the front and rear halves of the car could be separated. But one thing was already becoming clear. The task Bugatti had described as impossible was beginning to look very achievable, and as the team prepared to dive deeper into the Chiron's complex systems, they were about to discover just how much stood between them and one of the most ambitious moments in automotive rebuild history.